Yeah, can you please put the camera down? Can you please put the camera down? You're not allowed to film court officials doing a job.
Shocking figures released by housing and homeless charity reveal around 93,000 children in the UK woke up homeless last year.
I was like crying and I said, I don't want to be homeless.
As local councils push through the regeneration and development of estates, activists accuse them of social cleansing.
It doesn't care about people like us. It cares about people that are rich, and it doesn't care about the working class, low earner.
So this is one of the houses on the estate, and the residents have told me the developers have been here and they've basically gutted out the properties. In some cases they've gone as far as flooding them out, making them unlivable for the residents.
With less and less social housing available, charities warn families are being forced to live in unhealthy conditions.
It's dirty. Even they bring a sofa, look. They bring a sofa, they bring it from outside to us. We are animal or what? We are a human and we have rights.
In this episode of INfocus, we show the devastating effects of the housing crisis that's tearing through the UK. Britain has been engulfed in a housing crisis for a number of years. Soaring rents, bad conditions of housing, and homelessness are all too common today. The lack of affordable homes is affecting many across Britain. People are finding themselves priced out of home ownership, forced to pay unaffordable rent, and find themselves, at times, with no home at all. The number of households in temporary accommodation has reached almost 65,000, and charities are warning that the UK is sleepwalking into a homelessness crisis. Temporary accommodation includes a variety of different types of properties, from flats, hostels to bed and breakfast style places. The Yusufi family have found themselves living in temporary accommodation for the last 2 years, after being evicted by their landlord and unable to afford another private rental property.
Last day I give the key to the bailiff, then I took my 2 children and my wife to the council, Waltham Forest Council. We was there for about 4 or 5 hours waiting there. Then they said to me, we're offering you a 1-bedroom flat, one-bedroom flat in Ilford. I told them, how come 1-bedroom flat with 2 children? They said to me, no, don't worry, it's just temporary. It's just temporary. I said, what do you mean temporary? They said to me, for maximum between 6 months to 1 year, maximum.
According to Unite the Union, in October 2010, 1 in 10 private renters in England reported they had suffered ill health issues because of the poor state of where they live, many saying they had problems with mould and damp, electrical hazards and pest infestations.
We've got plenty of mouse everywhere in the kitchen and here as well. And the children, they scared to sleep here because, you know, one time we was sitting here and watching the TV and they see the mouse playing here in the kitchen. And they started crying, shouting, and they don't want to stay here.
A report released by UK charity Shelter revealed that bad housing conditions such as overcrowding can have a devastating impact on a child's life, impacting their health, education and development. The Yusufi family are also forced to sleep in 1 bedroom.
I can't sleep like that because there's something that is stamping up in here because I can't even sleep. And my brother, his bed is broken and I can't get in because I really want to play with him. And I really want other home that when I was live. there, in one farm stove.
Where do you play in the flat?
In the flat, nowhere.
Why?
Because it's small and small, I can't run it. Can't run in the toilet and my socks is wet.
His mum told me the reason his feet were getting wet is because the bathroom is full of damp. Experts are warning the crisis damages lives, breaks up families, blights employment prospects, reduces mobility and slows the economy. Unable to move his young boys to nearby schools due to long waiting lists, Yusufi has found his ability to work has been severely hampered.
I can't because, I can't go, for example, to work. Sincerely, I want to be honest with you. Because my wife, she working part-time job, okay? That's fine. But the day you go to work, how can I do with the children? It's not easy. It's not easy for me. Even if it's far away from here. Every day you have to do 6 miles for one way.
Although this accommodation is described as temporary, in practice, many families find they are forced to spend a long time in such living arrangements due to the current shortage of settled housing. But despite many of these properties being substandard, many families are having to pay large rental costs.
It's expensive, this property, how much we pay in a month. It's nearly 900, and we pay in council tax full. And we are legal. But the agency, when you're asking for staff, for example, we asked for a bed for children, they bring a bed, I can't leave my child sleeping on it. It's dirty.
They collect them from the street.
It's dirty. Even they bring a sofa, look. They bring a sofa, they bring it from outside to us. We are animal or what? We are a human and we have rights.
The family have contacted the council on a number of occasions but told me the local authority has failed to get back to them. Britain's housing crisis has been blamed on the shortage of homes across the country. In May 2014, Mark Carney, Governor of the Bank of England, complained that house building in the UK was half that of his native Canada, despite the UK having a population twice the size. Housing activist Eileen Short believes it's shortage of affordable homes which is the key issue here.
Well, I think there's two things going on. For the last 20 years in Britain, like in the rest of the world, the fashion has been to denigrate public provision and the welfare state and to tell us that everything private is good. And that, in British terms, has meant that public housing, council housing, has been privatised, sold off or demolished, so that we have about 2 million less homes than we had 20 years ago. There hasn't been a lot of private building since the big economic worldwide crash. And so we get less homes with more people competing for them and private renting. So rents are soaring, and that's really what's squeezing everybody who isn't in the top 5%.
A decade ago, the Barker Review of Housing Supply noted that about 250,000 homes needed to be built every year to prevent spiralling house prices and a shortage of affordable homes. But experts say this target is not being met. Despite the shortage, an investigation carried out by the Evening Standard last year revealed 700 ghost mansions worth a total of £3 billion are lying empty and unused across the capital.
There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of empty properties around London that are sitting empty and are just accumulating wealth for people who don't need that wealth, while people who do need homes aren't able to live in them. But I know that a lot of these developments are becoming second homes for people who live out of town. They commute into London, work in the city or something, maybe live there a couple days a week, if that. And more beyond are actually advertised around the world in kind of financial centers around the world as investments. So it's like advertisements in the Qatari press that are saying, like, invest in London property. It's the best investment you can make for people who never have any intention of living in them and don't even plan to rent them out.
Activists have also said the lack of available land to build and less homes being built by the state has added to the problem. Between the late 1940s and late 1950s, councils built more homes than the private sector. So far, these figures have not been matched.
These are the precious homes which, in London at least, we face widespread demolition. Instead of building more of them, the government is undermining them by benefit cuts and giving developers a green light to demolish them.
In recent years, a tide of gentrification has swept across London. The issue is hugely divisive and has been met with protest. Those in favour celebrate it as urban improvement and regeneration, while those on the other side see it as social cleansing.
At the Elephant and Castle, the Haygate estate of 1,100 council homes, so affordable rent, lifetime tenancies, a community of people, neighbours, was demolished and is being replaced by 2,400 homes, but only 70 odd of those homes will be council homes, will be social housing for rent. Now that's what developers call regeneration, but actually what we call it is displacement and social and ethnic cleansing, because the people who could afford to live in that development are driven out to make way for people with a lot more money, and that is what's creating the crisis that London sees.
Since the 1990s, both the Conservative and the Labour governments have targeted council estates for various regeneration programmes, justified through so-called mixed communities policy. By redeveloping council estates into mixed communities, national and local governments claim to tackle deprivation and social exclusion. Councils and their regeneration partners, made up of property developers and housing associations, say that council residents will be able to return and live in those redeveloped areas. However, critics have said there is little truth in this, and that in many cases people are forced to move from their area into other council homes or the private sector.
This is increasingly what's happening, not just in London but across Britain, that the people who do the absolutely key jobs, from teaching our children and sweeping our hospitals and serving coffee and cooking food in canteens, those people are being driven out by the pressure of rents and the lack of alternatives to private renting.
The regeneration of the old Graham Park estate in Colindale to create New Hendon Village is one of the largest projects in London. Graham Park was Barnet Council's largest housing estate, with 1,777 homes built by the GLC in the 1970s. Some parts of the old estate are still standing. Some of the residents told me those blocks will also soon be demolished, and they too will have to move out of the area, in many cases out of London.
Do you think it's, some people say it's okay if the council are offering you accommodation in, say, other parts of the UK, you should just take it? If you can't afford to live here, why do you deserve to be here?
Because I work here, my family are here, my children was born here. The opportunities in life are here in London. All of my friends and family are here. Why should I not? Because I don't earn more than £2,000 a month.
A document that was leaked to The Independent newspaper showed between July and September last year there were 423 families sent out of Greater London, including 115 families sent to Essex, 96 families sent to Kent and 24 to Birmingham.
Here on Graham Park is quite nice. We've built a nice community with each other. We're all friends. The children play out, as you can see. The houses, if they were brought up to the decent home standard, they would be in good condition. They're very well made and quite sizable properties. There's no reason for them to be knocked down, and being an unsecured tenant, we're not even guaranteed anything when this does happen. So we could be thrown anywhere at that point.
She went on to tell me that she feared losing the community they had created here on the estate, and stressed the negative impact it would have on the children of both moving schools and losing their friends. But she, along with the other residents, felt it wasn't something the local council cared about.
It doesn't care about people like us. It cares about people that are rich. They don't care about the people here that are low earners that can't afford to pay more than £2,000 per month. They don't care about our children. They provide no community or anything. We do that ourselves, and at the end of the day, they're just going to chuck us wherever.
Recently, Housing Minister Brandon Lewis called for the demolition and redevelopment of more council estates across London. He described the move as a way of boosting the supply of homes in the capital. Lisa thinks things are just going to get harder under the new government.
With their plans on council accommodation and what they class as affordable rents, with the change where they feel like bringing the council rents up to 80% of the market value is too high. People are not going to be able to afford to live. I work as a letting agent and I see people that have been kicked out of their properties all the time that can't afford the private market. They are starving themselves to pay their rent and then getting re-evicted.
Sweetsway is a housing estate located in the leafy borough of Barnet in North London. The estate once belonged to the Ministry of Defence, who sold it to Annington Homes, a private developer, who planned to demolish the existing homes and replace them with new units, of which only a small fraction will be affordable homes. The estate was once home to over 150 families. Residents were forced to leave their homes earlier this year and move to temporary accommodations out of the borough. Since then, the families have been fighting for the right to go back to the estate, and in an effort to stop the development, they have occupied an empty house, which has become known as the Occupation House. Many of the former residents still gather there. I met Anna, a single mother of 2 young children, who took me around the estate. Most of the houses had metal shutters over the doors and windows to stop any more of them being squatted in.
So this is one of the houses on the estate, and the residents have told me the developers have been here and they've basically gutted out the properties. In some cases they've gone as far as flooding them out, making them unlivable for the residents.
We went to her old house, which is now being occupied by squatters who agreed to let us film inside.
It was clean, nice property. It wasn't nothing luxury, but it was good enough for us. It was clean, it was cozy, it was in perfect, area with lots of lovely people around. And now it's just heartbreaking.
Anna told me that the Conservative-led Barnet Council had had plenty of time to arrange for alternative accommodation, but had failed to do so. This led to terrible outcomes for some families who found their possessions dumped on the streets by bailiffs.
Well, basically, we knew that this is private property right now. So at the beginning, we were worrying. We did worry, but we said, okay, we cannot do anything. And then when Esme was evicted, one of the residents, she basically had to wait until she's out on the street. When the bailiff come, chuck her out on the street, lock all the belongings, and this is the time when the few of the activists came, and they said, this is not right. So, because we were so close with all of the people living on Sweetsway, we say, you can't treat people like that. Why don't you give them the flat like 2 days before? You know eviction is coming. She gave you an eviction letter. She's your responsibility. She's working parent, they both work. Why wouldn't you help them?
Eventually, the council began the process of rehousing them, offering many of them accommodations which were very far away from their schools and places of work. At times, the conditions of these alternative accommodations were of a substandard condition. This flat was offered to a mother of 2.
It's very difficult because the house is the main thing. You need to feel safe in your house. And when you're coming back every day and you're thinking, okay, when are we going to receive the letters? When am I going to go? And then you are at the point when you're living on boxes, basically waiting for the council to rehouse you, and it's just heartbreaking. You're going to work, you cannot focus on work because you don't know when the letter is going to come, that when the bailiff will come, or what kind of property you're going to get, or where you're going to get this property. Is it going to be for a month? Is it going to be disgusting like other people get? So all of this is in your mind, and you just can't function properly.
Barnet is considered to be an affluent town. Residents here told me they felt the housing policy in this area is being engineered to exclude many low-income families and remove them from Barnet.
So they want to create a borough for rich, for super rich. forgetting that, you know, we are the people who work in the hospitals, who work in pharmacies, in shops, in restaurants. You can't create borough for super rich without, you know, working class. It's just not right. So when we start arguing about why they're sending people to Luton and Birmingham and, you know, all outside boroughs, they say they don't have a housing here. And I say, okay, you don't have a housing, but you are the one who's supposed to build houses, and you're just selling them.
Many housing activists say the housing crisis has worsened under the last coalition government. Policies such as the Localism Act and the introduction of the bedroom tax have been called divisive and destructive.
In the last 5 or 6 years in Britain, what was a housing problem has been cranked up by government policies. So the last government cut by 60%. The first thing they did when they got elected was cut by 60% their spending on public and social housing. That immediately created a problem. They then said that new built council homes and housing association homes should be let at up to 80% market rents. That cranks up another layer of problem. They started to replace secure lifetime tenancies with fixed term 5-year tenancies or less. And then they started cutting the benefits that people rely on, that's government funding that people rely on to be able to pay their rent. So the bedroom tax and other benefit cuts mean that some of the people who are most vulnerable, who are sick or disabled or trying to raise very small children, have been hit by benefit cuts which are forcing them into insecurity, forces people into private renting who it's not possible to live in private renting in Britain with only 3 months secure tenant, with 3-month tenancies, and try to raise children. So it's created a perfect storm.
Critics of the government have accused it of focusing on boosting demand rather than increasing supply, subsidising first-time buyers with policies such as right to buy, help to buy and rent to own. But Liam feels it wouldn't have been any different under a Labour government.
Both the major parties are committed to a lot of the same policies when it comes to economic austerity and letting the free market pretty much run roughshod through people's lives. So I wouldn't say there would be a massive difference in many practical situations. I mean, it would be a slightly nicer faced destruction of people's homes under a Labour government. But to be honest, I think whatever happens, we're going to need to fight and we're going to need to organize. And so we're going to keep doing what we've been doing for the last several months now under this government, just like we did under the last.
So what can be done to fix the housing crisis?
70 estates that we know of in London are threatened with demolition. This is large, purpose-built council and housing association developments with affordable rents, or traditionally, and that's what we expect of them. Instead of demolishing them, we need to invest in them, repair them, renovate them and open them up so that the empty homes on those estates, which are spread across London, are put back to use. And then we need to develop more. There's also a level where national government are responsible. So there are different aspects to it, and I think there's accountability needed at a lot of levels. What social movements provide is the chance to hold all to account at once, because through organizing efforts, and this has been seen in Spain in recent years, people can actually just take over empty homes en masse. And I think that's more and more the place that London is moving towards at this point, where people will be forced to essentially collectively occupy places like the Sweet Sway estate and highlight that we're going to live, not just highlight, but actually live in places that would otherwise be sitting empty or turned into investments.